China is what we're going to be discussing in this video, particularly how information is key. It is power. It sets actions and also determines them, and the Chinese government knows that very well. And that's why there's such a big information war happening right now. But here in the United States, I do believe we are getting only one side of the story, since we do forget that, the United States also bans other foreign corporations from doing business here. We're going to get into that, plus a lot more in this video, which, of course, our discussion will also focus on Hong Kong, the NBA, and, of course, also South Park. This, plus a lot more, by an independent media organization supported not by any state, large corporation that censors information, but of course you, the viewer. See, that's why we don't censor or shill for any particular side. And only because of you deciding to get involved, you supporting independent media on subscribestar.com/wearechange. The link will be in the description. Only because of you are we allowed to be here to give you the free content that we are every day. So yeah, maybe go check it out. So obviously, there's the developing situation surrounding China, its social credit score, its surveillance states, its censorship, and of course also the larger kind of trade war that is ensuing between the number one hegemony on the world market today versus an up-and-coming competitor, which of course is China. And already with this unfolding insidious trap, we already see an economic war already at play here that is important context to understand the latest current events that are unfolding. Because, historically speaking, when a great power is threatened to be displaced by another up-and-coming power, war usually is the result. That's what the insidious trap means. And with the current situation, there's definitely already an economic conflict unfolding between China and the United States, and all of this surrounding tariffs, trade, and ultimately two economies that somewhat depend on each other, both of which, by the way, the media won't tell you, are artificially inflated and just as massive as they are because of debt. Yeah, if you really take a look at the Chinese and American economy, holy cow, there's a lot of, let's just be family friendly here, fiddlesticks. There's a lot of fiddlesticks when it comes to those big large economies, and historically when economic talks break down and economic warfare starts, this of course is why many people are afraid that this may lead to somehow of a bigger hot war, which could be possible, but as of right now does not look plausible, and with predicted population and economic declines looks less favorable because of those two factors. Now, a lot of this started because the Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey tweeted a support message for the protests that are happening in Hong Kong. Tweeting an image that said, "Fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong," a message, of course, that he quickly deleted, and then right after that offered a very long apology. And because of that simple message, "Fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong," a huge scandal erupted that I would say is absolutely ridiculous, as even the NBA store near Beijing, near Tiananmen Square, literally rushed to replace any Houston Rockets gear from its store. Online merchants started removing anything related to that basketball team, and showed how the NBA, which by the way is very vocal on political issues, social justice issues, is very, very open and opinionated when it comes to American politics and critiques against things that happen here in the United States very openly. But when it came to China and we came from the money that they get from China, well, as even The Guardian says here, China just showed how they're only, quote, woke when it doesn't cost them any money. And that's the bigger truth here when it comes to kind of woke culture. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of big executives, there's a lot of people sitting in high towers with cigars making a buck off of this movement because it's somewhat popular now. But when it hurts the bottom line, the NBA even released a statement distancing itself from the then deleted tweet, with even initial reports coming out that the Rockets were discussing removing the general manager of the Houston Rockets for his tweet. The NBA even pushed out one of its, quote, superstars, James Harden, to apologize to China, saying that he loves China. No. And then South Park also made this point more brilliantly, but James Harden doesn't love China. James Harden loves the money The NBA loves the money that they get from China, and that's not really love. That's prostitution. That's called being a whore. Essentially saying, we're going to give you a little bit of money, but you have to do, sing, dance, say, believe what we want you to do. And there's a lot of people, not just the NBA, not just the Houston Rockets that are playing ball with this, but also a large portion of Hollywood with many popular films and series just straight up censoring and changing the entertainment that we consume in order to not just appease the Chinese, do whatever they say just so they could sell their product in China, which of course makes them a lot of money, which essentially is all that Hollywood cares about, all that these executives care about. And this is why there's such a duplicitous, horrible nature with them talking about how great wokeness is here in the United States, but then literally putting their tail behind their legs, bending over and taking it from the largest special interest that they could find. That's essentially the whoredom of Hollywood, and that's exactly what it should be called. Even symbols like the Japanese and Taiwanese flag are removed from movie trailers and digitally scrubbed because some Chinese official doesn't like it. And of course, Hollywood obeys and listens and does whatever they're told to do for a buck. And this is far more persuasive than we even know about. And it deserves to be called out, because whether you support the protests in Hong Kong or you don't, you should be able to discuss those ideas. You should be able to have free speech. But these are principles that, of course, very few people have. And they're bowing down to the Chinese, who are answering back with just more censorship. As, of course, the Chinese state broadcaster said that it would be pulling the Houston Rockets games off of air. Many sponsors have abandoned the Houston Rockets and the NBA. And, of course, they are threatening totally cutting off the NBA from China. Now, very interestingly, the NBA is totally flip-flopping here, all depending on, of course, public pressure, which shows you how important our reaction actually is here. But originally, they said that they are extremely disappointed in this general manager's inappropriate statement, and that no doubt he has severely hurt the feelings. Oh, the feelings of how he has deeply offended many in China, which is regrettable. And now the NBA is saying, no, okay, the public reaction was enough. We kind of do believe in freedom of speech now, when in reality, not really. All they really care about is making a buck. And then, very interestingly enough, South Park, which had an entire episode just surrounding the Chinese censorship that happens in the United States. Well, and then very interestingly, just last week, Wednesday, South Park had an entire episode dedicated to the Chinese censorship that happens here in the United States by American companies that, of course, prioritize making money over, of course, everything else, which South Park brilliantly highlighted in a very facetious, sarcastic, and I would say ingenious way. You could watch the episode for free on Comedy Central's website. And because of that episode last week, Wednesday, South Park was essentially blacklisted, censored, and banned from, of course, the Chinese internet, with all of their clips, episodes, and even discussions around them being completely eviscerated from the tightly controlled Chinese internet, which South Park responded to with an official apology saying, quote, "Like the NBA, we welcome the Chinese censors into our homes and into our hearts. We too love money more than freedom and democracy. Z doesn't look just like Winnie the Pooh at all. Tune into the 300th episode this Wednesday at 10. Long live the great Communist Party of China. May this autumn's sorghum harvest be bountiful. We good now, China?" Of course, also linking to the official article, and of course gaining everyone's respect and praise for pointing out at just how ridiculous this is. And of course, they are absolutely right in their criticism, in their, I would say, hilarious response to the Chinese, because it's ridiculous that now people can't have any Houston Rockets merchandise or can't even know or talk about or hear anything about South Park because of people having opinions that they don't like. And the ridiculousness only continues as even economic talking about the real GDP growth of China is also censored in China. Winnie the Pooh and any references to him and any merchandise is also banned in China. because people started to compare this fictional character with, of course, the Chinese president. And we have to understand, in China, there's a very tight grip of control by the government against its citizens, specifically with the social credit score that has already stopped millions of people from being able to go about their lives, with even super cameras being developed that are just as astonishing as, if not terrifying, to the capabilities that a technocratic state could have over its civilians. And this, of course, as many news organizations have been blocked, and access to free information, like, about South Park or the Houston Rockets, is just totally deleted in real time, as of course VPNs are also being targeted for giving people the ability to actually see the internet without any of these tightly controlled censors. And all of this is coming to a head as protests turn more violent in Hong Kong, as even the Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam just said for the first time, warning the public that the Chinese military could step in at any time, saying this for the first time, as of course the situation with the Uyghur Muslims in China is also gaining a lot of attention in Western media. And as all of this is developing, we have to understand from a geopolitical position, human rights don't matter here. It all comes down to the bottom line. It all comes down to power and money. And we have to understand the sanctions, the economic war, tariffs, the trade war. All of this comes down to, of course, the question of world hegemony and not human rights. And before the West or the mainstream media gets all high and mighty about the social credit score or human rights or companies being blocked in China, we have to understand that Donald Trump also blocked Chinese companies from operating in the United States, establishing many protectionist policies, specifically the one with Huawei, in response to a lot of fears that the United States has about the Chinese. And as China censors speech, this is also something similar that many big tech Silicon Valley companies do here in the United States, as it came out that the big tech monopolies in the United States just censor alternative media, which if you've been watching this channel, you would know a lot about. I definitely know a lot about it, but it's true. In many places in the United States, it's illegal to even misgender. It's illegal to say illegal in New York City. And countries in the West, even specifically the UK government, are moving very aggressively to censor and control free speech. And already, according to many tech experts and analysts, we already have a social credit score much like China, except it is better disguised and in the hands of the technocrats in Silicon Valley that work with the United States government, specifically intelligence agencies. And when it comes to China controlling Hollywood, well, guess what? The U.S. Pentagon, the U.S. military-industrial complex already does that in many different ways. So essentially, when you're looking at the larger issue here, essentially, you're looking at an issue of money, trade, of power, and that's why it's important to question all the narratives that we are being given right now and to see them for what they really are, which is utterly ridiculous and stupid, and the hypocritical duplicity nature of this entire argument should be understood by everyone. And I hope I made you understand that. If I did, share this video, because guess what? The big tech algorithms definitely won't. We've been getting just hammered and hammered by the YouTube algorithm, as many independent journalists who don't toe the line and don't play the game are. And because of your donations, your support, we're still able to be here calling out both sides, which I think is well needed. If you think it's well needed, support us with your shares, your clicks, your donations. It means the world to me. Without you, I wouldn't be here, and that's why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.